Hi, I'm Dr. Jason J. Campbell, and I want to thank you for taking the time to watch my videos. Today was a pretty significant day for me. I was able to meet Brother Cornel West, and as a public academic, as a public intellect, as a public educator, he's obviously an enormous role model. He exemplifies a lot of what I aspire to be. And I was able to speak with him for a while, and I asked him, what advice does he have for me as a young academic? What should I do? And I just wanted to acknowledge his response to me, because we may never meet again, and the time that we sat and spoke was very, very small. It was a very quick period of time, but what he said, it affected me deeply. And he said, don't chase after the career, focus on your vocation, on your passion. And that's how you make the change, right? It's not about the career, it's not about becoming an associate professor and professor, as much as it is about my vocation and my passion. And my passion is virtual education. So I feel that I'm on the right track, that I'm doing what I need to be doing. I just want to say thank you to Brother Cornel West for his words of encouragement and wisdom. I'm deeply indebted. And with that, here is the video of my presentation on community and privilege. Thanks for watching my videos. I'm Dr. Jason J. Campbell. Goodbye. Alright, my name is Dr. Jason J. Campbell, and I want to thank you guys for taking the time to listen to this presentation on power, privilege, and influence. I am an assistant professor of conflict resolution and philosophy here at Northwest Southeastern University. My education is in philosophy, my bachelor's, my master's, my PhD, all in philosophy, primarily concerned with international conflict, terrorism, genocide, that type of stuff. That's the stuff I lecture on, that's the stuff I teach. Or empower as defined by the ability to make decisions, act in order to safeguard their power. So what we need to do, if the stage has been set, and I'm going to walk you guys through this very slowly at first and then more complex as we go along, what we need to do is to tell a story. And the story is the story of the Three Little Pigs. Someone tell me in 100 words or less the story of the Three Little Pigs. You have to know, obviously, the story of the Three Little Pigs to be able to participate. So, only those people who know the story of the Three Little Pigs. Yes, tell me your name and tell me the story of the Three Little Pigs.
My name is Alexandria Johnson. The story of the Three Little Pigs is of three pigs, of course, who are building a home, and one is building it out of straw, one is out of another material, and one builds it out of strong bricks. And at the end of the story, basically, the other pigs come to meet their demise, and the person who built theirs with bricks is protected.
Okay, very nice. Does anybody know what the missing material is?
Wood.
It was wood, right? One builds, thank you, Alexandria, right? Thank you, Alexandria. Listen to the story. Listen to the story. Super simple. We teach this story to our infant children. Three little pigs. One little pig, first little pig, little hasty little pig, little quick, round the corner, cutting corners little pig, hurries up and wants to construct his home. Oh, I don't know if pigs have gender. They were so good. I know they have sex, but I don't know if they have gender. But that's usually that joke. So, the hasty little pig constructs the pig out of straw. And the house goes up really, really quickly, right? The house goes up quickly. The next little pig recognizes that there's a big bad wolf out there, and the wolf is coming to get you. And I'm going to need to put a little bit more initiative, a little bit more forethought into the construction of my home. And that pig uses a little bit more time, but gets a little bit better result by using wood, not straw. And the last little pig, the industrious little pig, industrious little pig, takes time, gathers all the bricks, gets the mortar, gets all the adhesives, the concrete, and constructs the house out of concrete. And then Alexandria was such a nice storyteller, she never told us the bad part, but I like the bad part of the story. Alexandria, thank you for omitting that part. But the wolf comes to town. And the wolf goes to the first little pig's house, which is made out of straw. And he huffs, and he puffs, and he blows the house down. And
coming back to us.
No, in my version he gobbles up. This is Dr. Campbell's perversion. Of the three little pigs. We eat that little pig. So then the big bad wolf goes to the second house. Oh, this one's made out of wood, but I have good lungs. I'm the big bad wolf. So the big bad wolf huffs, and he puffs, and he blows down the second house of the second pig. And there's a little pig all feeble and waiting, all hastily, wishing that he would have spent the time to construct a home, and he gets gobbled up by the big bad wolf. In my sort of perverse version. And in the last story, the industrious, hard-working little pig is confronted with the big bad wolf, but the wolf recognizes that he cannot penetrate the barriers of the home because the home was constructed with the intent to protect the little pig. I'll say that again. Because the home was constructed with the intent to protect the little pig. Everybody got the story? You guys ready to go a little bit deeper?
That's good.
We're going to go a little deeper. Now, we're talking about community formation. Community formation means exactly what it says. How communities are organized. How we create senses of community. We're going to do an analogy. Our three little pigs story is similar to community formation if you recognize the relationship. In the story, the community is going to be represented by what? Anybody want to take a guess? The community is represented by the pigs. And what are they forming? Who said houses? That was good. Somebody. What's your name? Michael. Michael? Very good, Michael. Houses. Michael, we're going to put scare quotes around houses because you're right, but with a qualification. The community is a community of pigs, and the formation is the formation of houses. The question then becomes, why is the formation of houses in this story of the three little pigs important, right? We need to ask ourselves, why? Why? Why do we need the house? What does the story of the three little pigs that we are told as children, and I love going back to nursery rhymes and the most simple, mundane of stories, because there's so much imbued in that, right? We hear it as children and it rings in a chord, but we don't know why. We're much older now, so now we can reinvestigate the story of the three little pigs with much more complexity. Why is the house important?
Because they're symbolic for resources.
Okay, so symbolic for resources.
Correct.
Nice.
It's for
Protection, too. Protection from what? From the threat. And on and on and on. Very good. Why do we need these houses? Well, there are resources that are available. Very good. What's your name? Robert. Very good, right? We need resources, right? So the community is going to go together and make use of their resources in order to form society. The community. The community itself is obviously more than just the people. Does everybody see what Robert's saying? The community is more than just the people. The community is not just a collection, an aggregate of people. An aggregate of people is nothing more than an aggregate of people. The community also includes the infrastructure, right? The community includes the infrastructure. So insofar as we're talking about community formation on a very conceptual, abstract level, and by the end of this discussion, I'm going to throw in all the jargon to replace all of this sort of very simple nursery rhyme story, and you guys will, hopefully, if I do my job well, retain this and change the world for the better. The idea of community formation for community organizers is to recognize that insofar as we talk about communities, we are talking about people and their cohabitation within the infrastructure in their surroundings. Now let me ask you this. For the first little pig, you guys ready to go a little bit deeper? The first little pig, independent to what you think the story might have been about. The story was about Protestant work ethic, and Dr. West notoriously hammers the concept of Protestant work ethic, right? So I'm not going to give you that version of the story. the version of the story that we're told as children is something that I just want to flat out deny, right? That the harder you work, the more protected and the better your community will be. Because the way that the story was told to you is that the first little pig was lazy, but I like Weber a lot. Weber says,
That's all the research.
Weber
had to build a house so he's strong.
Work with what he had.
what if the only resources I had to build a house was straw? What if I really, really worked hard, but all I got was straw? Well, my community is pretty much crap when the big bad wolf comes. It's not that I'm lazy, Weber. Come on now. Is that all I got is straw? You guys understand? You follow me, right?
Yeah.
You know we're not talking about the three little pigs now.
Right.
Are we all talking on the same level without talking on the same level?
Yeah.
Okay.
We're here.
Exception! If it were only that good, it's not exception. So, I can't break form. So the point is, as Weber says, what if I only have access to straw? What is going to be the construction of my community when all I have access to is straw? I'm going to have a straw-based community, which blows over easily, and it is self-destructive. I'm going to run into my community to protect myself, and that's the exact institution that was designed for my destruction. When threat arises, where do you go? You go home. You call your mom, you call your friends, you call your family, you call your religious leaders. What if you go back to that community and the community itself isn't capable of defending you from a threat? You're going to get ate. You're going to get ate. You're going to get ate. You follow me? Okay. You're going to get ate. And I'm the big bad wolf. I am the big bad wolf because I made sure that when Weber went outside, all Weber was able to see is straw. I don't help you build your community. I'm also not necessarily attacking your community. But I'm going to make sure every time you look, all you have is straw. So the next little pig, a little bit more industrious, goes out and collects wood. I'm going to get a little Aristotelian. I'm not going to give you too much because I don't want to scare y'all off. Aristotle has, and you can Google this yourself, I'm not going to go into the lecture, he has what's known as the four causes. Aristotle, to make it simple, says that what we see in life are material objects in the world. Weber sees a slab of marble, and he recognizes that it's a slab of marble, but Weber has a more perceptive mind than I do. I use that slab of marble to prop something open. Weber sees the potential in that marble, and he takes his creative energy and he crafts something in that marble. Does everybody see this? Do you guys recognize that on this level there are resources out there, namely wood, but it's not just the wood. I have to see in that wood the potential to protect my home. I have to see in the resources the potential for those resources to contribute to my community. Does everybody see this? Bauxite, resource, contributes to my community. Aluminum, resource, contributes to my community. Cobalt, resource that contributes to my community. Oil, resource that contributes to my community. Gold, resource that contributes to my community. Does everybody see this? If it's the case that these resources contribute to our community, well, it had better been the case that I have access to the best
Resources.
That I have access to the best resources. Does everybody see this? You can't talk about community without recognizing that community is based on resources. And I want the best resources. Now, the last little pig, oh man, he hit the jackpot, right? Because the last little pig has access to the best resources. Yeah. At least for the story, right? In the 21st century, it would be like platinum or something. I'm not sure what it would be. For those of you who get the joke, it would be unobtainium. Right? Okay, I can see this avatar nerds. I'm amongst friends. I'm amongst friends. This is good. Right, so unobtainium would be the best resource now, contemporarily. But you know, there is that one little problem with resources. There is that one little problem with resources. We need resources to build our communities, but there are other communities in the way of those resources. I'll say that again. We need resources to build our communities, but there are other communities in the way of those resources. So here's where I live. And here's where you live. And here's the resource that I want. And I want that resource to contribute to the development of my community. Unfortunately, however, we're talking about, let's say, unobtainium. And you happen to live. Nice, nice. You happen to live right underneath the motherlode of unobtainium. You happen to live right underneath the motherlode of unobtainium, and I need that resource. And it's just so unfortunate that you happen to live on top of it. Wait a second, now your community is a threat to my community. Why? Some super bright student. Why is your community, Michael? Why?
You're stopping me from allowing me to accomplish my goals in my dreams.
You're stopping me by doing what, Michael?
Stopping me from building my
I know, but what? By, who said that? We did, right? Your existence is a threat. The fact that you are breathing is a threat to my community. The fact that you are breathing is a threat to my community. I want your resources, and the wolves coming to get your resources. And if you happen to populate an enormous tree, we're just going to have to knock that tree over. Does everybody see that? So what happens in the movie? And then what happens? Oh, look at that, baby. Oh, now. Look at this. Look at that. Look at that. Look how easy this is. Oh, baby. Oh, baby. Oh, baby. It's pretty simple, right? Anybody can understand that. Look what we did. We went from the big bad wolf to this. But this is still sort of surface level.
That's Fern Goings.
Yeah, we're going to get a little bit deeper. We're going to get a little bit deeper than this, right? The whole idea is in so far as we create this edifice, meaning this structure, this building, this concept, this idea of community, you have to recognize that communities exist in a relationship to their ability or their inability to share resources. Communities exist. They will thrive or they will die in relationship to their abilities to share or not. If you're willing to share, isn't it the case that maybe we both can thrive? We say, you can have a little bit, we keep a little bit. But no, we're not going to believe that you're going to give it to us, right? So what we do is we create a justification. Someone tell me, really simply, what a justification is. Someone I haven't heard from. Someone tell me what a justification is. Anybody? Justification. It's
A rationale.
rationale. A justification is a rationale. I need a justification in this story. And we'll label these communities Community 1, and we'll label this community Community 2. And the question is, to whom does the justification go? Who needs the justification?
With the reason.
One. One needs the justification. Why? Because they're the invading force. You get the first handshake, Casey. Very good. Casey, absolutely right. They're invading force. They need to be able to justify their invasion. Does everybody see this? They need to be, oh, now we can just throw it out. Now it just gets ridiculous. Call it crusade, call it, racial discrimination, call it whatever you want. So we need to be able to justify our invasion. So, in order to justify this invasion, we need something, a mechanism of justification. Everybody following me on this? We need a mechanism of justification. We need a mechanism of justification. Justification is a rationale. It's the green light. It's you are able to go ahead and grab that unobtainium. And insofar as some people are going to have to die for that unobtainium, you're justified in your act. And to whom are we? Now, here's a harder question. We know that community 1 needs the justification, but who are they attempting to justify this information to? To the rest of the world, to their population, to themselves. They need to be able to condone their acts. It seems like what we're doing is so horrible. Oh, I mean, if you want to get dirty, right? We don't have to talk after this discussion. Right? So the question becomes, to whom do we need this justification? Everybody needs this justification. Here's why we're going to justify it. Does everybody see this? Okay. Now, the mechanism of justification is going to be, unfortunately, where we come in. I told you I was a big bad wolf. It's the institution of education. When you sit in my class, I want to challenge everything that you believe in. If you believe in God, I want you to become an atheist. If you don't believe in God, I want you to become a Christian. If you believe in the beyond, I want you to think about the physical. If you believe in the physical, I want you to think about the beyond. I want you to challenge everything that you've ever been taught that is real in this world. Not because I think there's some truth that I'm going to tell you, but because you need to get in the habit of challenging the beliefs that you have. Because if you just swallow everything that you're told whole, well, guess what I do for a living? As Chomsky says, I manufacture your consent. Because as we saw in the last discussion, all is socially constructed. And who sits at the helm of social construction but the academic? We create social reality. So, my one little jab at psychologists. I'm a Foucauldian, so I have an aversion. And this always gets me in problems. But in the Diagnostic and Statistics Manual, I think it was version 2, to be homosexual was pathological. And there were all the complications that came with being labeled by the experts as a homosexual. You might not be insurable, you'd have denials for marriage, and on and on and on. All of these denials because they, the experts, said that what you had was pathological. Not an illness, pathological. Antisocial, destructive, inherently, pathological. Well, people like Simone de Beauvoir, Foucault, huge movements said, no, this is not fair. And they restructured the reality of the diagnosis. Oh, that lets me believe that maybe the diagnosis in itself is wrong. If at one time, to be homosexual was pathological, and in the very same discipline, in the very same manual, it's no longer pathological. Let me make sure that's right. We're not talking about two different institutions. We're not talking about two different books. In one in the same institution and one in the same version of the book, you could have been diagnosed at time X as being pathological because you were homosexual, and at another time as not. What's the reason for the change? Community. The community changed. The community said, I don't want you classifying my sister, my husband, my professor, my instructor, my friend, my significant other as being pathological because all I see in this person is beauty. All I see in this person is potential. So for you to say that my mother, my brother, my uncle, my dad, my niece, my nephew, my grandson, my granddaughter is pathological, you don't know my ex. Why don't you come and meet my ex? And then they see my ex and they're like, this is the most beautiful person I've ever met in my life. How could we have done that? The point is, where did that original source of truth come from? It came from the architects of ideology, us, the institution, the academics. When you sit in my class, you need to think Dr. Campbell's lying at every second. I don't believe anything he says ever. I don't want you to believe anything I say. I want you to hear the information and go on your own accord to determine whether or not what I'm telling you is actually right or wrong. Which is justified by the fact that I recognized that this was the pattern, and I wrote a paper as a graduate student about transsexuals and transsexual community and transgenderism, and said, hey, doesn't everybody see this exactly the same thing that was happening before? Now, in order for a transsexual to change his or her gender, they have to go to the medical institution and diagnose themselves as being pathological before they can get their sexual reassignment surgery? That we will grant them the surgery? We will let them do this, but the only way that you do this is by going through the demeaning and the disreputability and the perversion and the pathology of having to diagnose yourself as pathological prior to you getting the surgery. So you can get it, and you can change, but you got to wear the scarlet letter A. And how many people are willing to wear that scarlet letter A? This is who we are as people. So the point is, with respect to the mechanisms of justification, the manners in which we justify, the leading source of justification is known as ideology. Ideology, or ideological justification. An ideology is, for lack of better definitions, just keep it simple, an idea, I-D-E-A, right? An idea, and ology is the study of. So an ideology is the study of ideas. Can you believe that there's an actual discipline that devotes itself entirely to nothing other than the super, super abstract concept of spending your life studying ideas? That's all that ideology is. It's a study of ideas and how ideas affect change and how ideas are incorporated within the community. And then what we recognize is that, wait, insofar as we talk about the formation of community, the binding, ideas is what brings us together. Ideas, the concept of having an idea is what brings us together. Ideas bring us together, or ideas separate us. Why is it that after 9/11 everybody was so patriotic and kumbaya and holding hands for like 24 hours maybe? And then we went back to hating each other. Because we had an idea that we were being attacked and we needed to defend, so we defended. But why is it only in a threat that we have the idea of this unity? Why is it when everything's going otherwise well, we go back to the idea that we are different and being man or woman is better? Man or woman, which is better? First thing, be honest. Man or woman, which is better?
Women.
All right, I love it. You guys are conform. I'm trying to get you to conform. The idea is being a man's better. Black or white. White's better. Rich or poor. Rich is better. Stupid or educated. Educated is better. Right? We have our biases, right? We have these ideas. It's nothing more than an idea. Social construction is built on ideas. Well, let me tell you about, and I'm sweating over here. Let me tell you about a philosopher. I'm not going to go into too much detail. His name is Nietzsche. If you guys haven't read Nietzsche, pick up anything that he's ever read and read it from cover to cover. And if you have the time to read everything he's read or written, you need to read all of Nietzsche, especially you, Casey, because you look super young. We need to contaminate Casey's mind really early. Casey, Nietzsche. And I read his name down, right? His name is N-I-E-T-Z-S-C-H-E. So, I just wanted to, we want to corrupt Casey, right? What Nietzsche says is simple. Since it's the case that ideologies are the, thank you so much. Since it's the case that ideologies are the study of ideas, and it's the case that we recognize that ideas are the social glue that bring us together, then it's the case that since all we're talking about is ideas, that the person who tells the best what? Oh, you guys are good! The person who tells the best story wins. I just have to tell a really great story. I have to tell a story where we live together, peacefully. I have to tell a story that when a woman goes to work and clocks in at the same time as a man and leaves at the same time as a man, that it only seems fair that she gets the same amount of money that a man does. And I need you to believe that story, and I need you to tell that story. I need you to tell the story that I met a black professor, and he was just as smart as any of my white professors. He wasn't better, he wasn't worse, but he was just as smart. Does everybody see that? I need you to tell that story, because in the end, the true power is about the story that's told. And the better a storyteller you are, the more power you have. And I, unfortunately, have a flaw. I want lots and lots of power. I want lots of power. But I don't want to misuse the power that I'll be given. I want to be able to use the power that I have to tell you guys the same story that I'm telling now. But just magnify this group, like exponentially, right? And then I want you to go out and tell the same story and magnify that story exponentially, right? Because there are other people who are telling a different story. And this is the point. Where's the story of the wolf? No one told the story of the wolf. Doesn't the wolf have a story? I'm hungry. I'm hungry, and I'm going to die without your flesh. And you look so yummy. Is it really that bad? Seriously, is it really that bad that the wolf did what the wolf did in the story? See, we think that things are so easily understood. It's so black, it's so white, it's so clear, it's so predictable. No one thinks about the wolf story. I'm sure the wolf has a little pack of wolflets at home. It's not wolflets. And that, let's say the wolf we pictured as a man or a male wolf, but what if it's really the mother wolf that went out? And, you know, maybe our idea of the wolf as being male was wrong. Maybe it's the mother wolf going out to feed her children, and maybe she gobbles it up and then brings some of that meat back home. What happened to the story of the wolf? It's important that you recognize the totality of the story. Everybody got it? One last level. I don't want to run out of time. Now we'll leave time for Q&A. Now we're going to get deep. Now we're going to get really deep. Everybody understand this? Anybody not understand what I'm saying so far? Because now it's going to be jargon. Everybody good? Good. If we're talking about community formation, and we recognize that community formation is contingent on the ideological narrative that is told by those in power, everybody follow me? Did that make sense what I just said? Yes? Okay, because that's pretty technical. If we're talking about community formation, and we recognize that community formation is contingent on the ideological narrative told by those in power, then we had better make sure that those who tell the ideological narrative come from
The community.
the community!
Not just the community.
Not just the community, but hold on. We got to give her some shine on that.
Yeah, that's good.
We have to make sure that the people who tell the grand narrative come from the community. I'm a kid from the projects. I'm tatted from head to toe. I'm real ghetto. I'm real thug. I'm Tupac all day, and I don't make apologies for it. I don't make apologies for it. But I'm a nice guy. I would love to have a conversation with you. I would love to know about your life, but that's who I am. That's who I am. If I was a homosexual man with a partner, I would say, I'm a gay man with a partner who I love to death, and I'm willing to die for it. And you should say, I respect that. If I'm a woman and I'm disabled, I'm a woman disabled, and you need to respect me for that. Right? The whole point is, insofar as we're talking about the formation of communities, we cannot properly talk about community unless those who create community are from the community. Everybody get that? Okay, let me get your point now. Sorry.
No, exactly what. It has to come from the people that are in that particular community. I mean, how can you bring somebody from outside the community to tell the community about their issues?
Nice. Why is it the case that we love to tell people how to do their business? I love to tell somebody how to do their business. Oh man, I'm sorry, your community is so bad. And so don't you see how bad it is? This is what we need to do for your community. I don't live here, but I'm going to let you know. First thing, you got churches on every block. Do you really need so many churches? You don't need that many churches, do you? Let's take down some of those churches. Let's replace it with something else. You know, games, things to keep your mind occupied and busy. You know, why so many churches? Right? Or I go to another community and it's a gated community. And I say, oh, look how scared these people are. They're so fearful. You got to check in, you got to check out. They know when you come. You know, keeps you safe. Oh yeah, that's right, but there's no gate, so I can just really walk in and still get what I want out of your house. So how safe are you really? The whole point that gate is there is because you were told a story. The whole point why there is a guard there, who's probably a minority, who, if the guard really wanted to let his homeboys up in there, could let his homeboys up in there, and we could go walk through your house. When you at work, since we know, because we looked at the clock, and we know when you check in and when ain't nobody home, you think that gate's doing anything? You were told the story that the gate actually does something. That gate doesn't do nothing. As a matter of fact, the gate makes it better for me to walk up in your crib. You feel me? But you are told the story, and what you are actually gate. It's not the guard. It's the story that you are actually being protected. But you know what I just did? I told you that that story is a lie. Because you think, oh wow, that's a really good story that Dr. Campbell just told me. Don't look at the gate guy when you go home today. And if he's black or Hispanic, or if she's black or Hispanic, think, I wonder if they're going to let their friends up in here. My point isn't to create, I'll get you in a second. My point isn't to create a sense of fear in you. It's to show you that what comforts you is the story. All you need to be able to do is to tell a very creative story. And that's what transforms community. That's what community is about. Yes?
You were making the point that the idea and the ideological narrative needs to come from someone in the community. But if someone from the community understands, like Community 1 understands that 2 has the resources, how are they going to explain, should they want to community number 2, that they need those resources?
Very good. Very good.
I mean, you can't.
Very good. Here's what we say. Here's what we say. I'm not going to go into the whole discussion. You can go on my YouTube channel. I do a whole 2-hour lecture on Hobbes' social contract theory, which is the technical response. And the story is this, and I'll get everybody in a second. The story is this. I'm going to end with this, and then I want to leave 15 minutes for Q&A, because I don't have much more time. The story is this. Tell me your name.
Genesis.
Genesis. Oh, that's such an apropos name. Like, perfect. The beginning, the origin.
I agree with you.
I agree with that. Here's the story. In the beginning, there were resources, and they were dispersed throughout the world. Some areas had more resources than others. Some areas had less resources than others. But the areas that had less resources had different types of resources. Here's the story. Can we have just enough to support our community, and we'll leave some for y'all? We'll let you determine, since it's your resources, just how much you need. And the elders, or whoever, convene and they say, we need this number of resources, but here's what's extra. You can get the extra. Or, we don't have enough to share. We would if we had, but we don't have enough. And there would be a recognition and an understanding that I can't ask for more. This is how friends act. You call your friend up. What's your name? I don't know why it's the yellow color eye. What's your name? Jessica. I go to Jessica. Jessica's my friend. We've been friends for, she's not, I've never met her, but as you can tell. I go to Jessica and I say, we've been friends for 20 years. I say, Jessica, times are tough. You got 20 bucks? Jessica says, yeah, actually I do. I go over, she gives me 20 bucks. I immediately know that she has $20 to spare. Unless she's like the greatest friend ever, and she gave me her last 20 bucks, and she won't have any money, right? If I go to Jessica and I ask Jessica for $20, and we're really good friends, and Jessica says, Jay, sorry, so bad, but I really just don't have the spare. Am I now going to go to Jessica's house and kill her? Am I going to burn her house down? Am I going to have animosity to her? I'm immediately going to think, she at least made an effort. She doesn't have, I need to procure $20 for myself, or go hit up another friend. Does everybody see this? Why is it that we can't do that in an international level?
Because we're not friends.
Because we're not. We know the problem. It's a whole lot of problems. But this is the point. This friendship is based on a story. So my point is, albeit ideological, albeit idealist, is that all we need to do is to learn how to tell a more positive story. Thank you. Question and answer. Alexandra.
Commenting, not really a question, but a commentary to pick up feedback on what this young lady's
Genesis.
comment. Jessica?
Genesis.
Okay, Genesis. Talking about basically sharing the unobtainium, and the thing that I got when we first began the story about getting one resource from one place to another is that when you are going to that community that has that resource, when you're creating your story and piecing together what you're going to justify, and that mechanism of justification, which is usually the ideology that you're talking about, not putting into that ideology, not putting into the knowledge of what the resource is. Because if I'm the person that's taking the unobtainium from under the tree, I don't want to tell the people in the tree that the unobtainium has value and creates justification that puts that in there.
Right.
I may even want to leave that part out.
Of course.
And take that unobtainium.
And take it for myself.
Take it for myself.
Absolutely.
Take it all.
Do you see what you just did? Which was, I love that example. Because what you did is you told a story and you willfully omitted some of the facts. Does everybody see how that's unjust? Right? That's unjust. What's unjust is the fact that you knew that there was more to the story to be told. Right? If I were to do this in a philosophical sense, we would talk about the distinction between authentic and inauthentic conversation. Right? Authentic conversation, I really try to tell you not only the facts of the matter, but my beliefs and my representation, my distance from the facts, how I identify myself, how I represent myself with respect to the fact. I'll give you an example so that this makes sense. I'm a professor. I could be like, hey, I'm a professor, I'm super smart, you're not, blah, blah, look at me, let's talk about me. I can represent myself that way. I told you I'm from the projects, I'm hood, I'm tatted. You guys are like, most professors don't represent themselves like that. But then you recognize, but he's like a friendly thug. So I represent myself in that way. The point is, with respect to the nature of this ideological formation of society, if you are privileged, you should represent your privilege in a dignified way. When I get thirsty at 2 o'clock in the morning, I walk to my refrigerator, which is 300, 400 feet from my bed. And it's AC all day. And I click a little button and ice cubes fall down out of magic, out of thin air. Click, 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 click. And then I click another button and it goes shh. And I stay in my air-conditioned refrigerator and cool wooden floors, and I drink my ice water. And I do live in a gated community, so my gated community guy is protecting my house from the threat. Don't picture it like that. And I put my ice water down and I go back to my bed in refreshing, cool air conditioning and sleep under my nice comfy blanket. It's like 500, 600 thread count. Some people gotta walk 20 miles to get water. Women in Africa gotta walk 5, 10, 15, 20 miles to get to water, flanked by rebels on either side, and knowing that they're going to get raped to get water. So when I go to Africa, how about I just don't walk around with a bottle of water? How about I don't just walk around with a bottle of water and just be like, oh, it's so hot in Africa. Let me quench my thirst, it's just so hot. Somebody got to walk 20 miles to get not bottled water, somebody got to walk 20 miles to get probably contaminated water. So it might be a little tactful that when you go to a place that doesn't have bottled water readily available access to water, you don't walk around with your little bottled water. And if you do, you say, I'm sorry, the second you make, I'm so sorry. I swear. If you have another supply, I'll definitely drink it. I recognize my privilege. Right? Notice the example I gave you wasn't a gender example. It wasn't a race example. It wasn't an intellectual example. It was accessibility. Accessibility is a privilege. This is a privilege. To sit in my class, $3 grand a head. $3 grand a head. $3 grand a head. And it's worth it. And it's worth it. It's worth it. They're keeping it in check. Now, one last point. Now, the whole point is, I recognize that, and when you go to my YouTube channel, there are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds, and I'm not exaggerating, hundreds of hours of me lecturing to the world for free. Because this is a privilege. And they don't have access to this. So I have to put myself in a position to give them access to something they wouldn't otherwise have. Because people don't got $3,000 to listen to me talk. Does everybody understand? So is that the case that they should have access to the knowledge that I have in my head? I got so much I want to share with the world and so many positive stories to tell. So, greatest social media ever invented, right? It's the top of the hill. Okay, questions, other questions, yes? Tell me your name.
I think there is
Tell me your name, please.
Yankee.
Okay.
I think there is a step before you get to ideology. Ideology is only necessary in certain circumstances to justify this little cycle that we have here. It's only necessary when you need to keep somebody else from stopping you. If you don't need to get anybody else to stop you, if number one has the might to take over whatever number two has, they don't have to justify it. They just do it 'cause
There
they
is, that's a good point. There is, that's a good point. The story actually comes out of Plato's Republic. This idea that might makes right is a conversation that Socrates has with the general known as Thrasymachus. His name is Thrasymachus. Plato has a conversation with Thrasymachus, and Thrasymachus tells him might makes right. But the idea that might makes right itself requires justification. So the point is, you are never outside of the realm of ideological justification. Everything is ideological justification, because the idea that I have and I can take justifies, right? It appeals to the might. The idea that you don't have and you don't have the ability to take justifies your vulnerability. So it's important to recognize that with respect to ideological, not that you're wrong, it's partially correct, it's just, I would say, an intensity. The level of justification that you might need for something like this might be much, much stronger than the justification you might need for might makes right. So yes, Michael. I'll get like 2 more points and then I want to call it a wrap because we're running on time.
Yeah, and you can see this throughout history. For example, in World War II with Hitler.
Right.
You see how his justification was and how he believed what he was doing was right. He told the story.
Right.
And if you go back even further with our founding father, one of our presidents, Polk, how he wanted to manifest destiny.
Right.
How he took
Manifest destiny.
and how he wanted.
I don't know what that means though, but yes. I mean, I do know what that means, but it's destiny is manifest. I have to stop you. That's such a good point, right? It's like, it was going to be the case anyway, because it was determined from the beginning of the origin of the world that I was going to be the one to dominate. So the fact that I'm dominating isn't just my desire to dominate. I was manifestly destined to dominate. You can't hold me accountable then because it's not my fault. It's the universe, right? The universe. It's the universe's fault. Very good. The second, well, let me get one more point. Yes, ma'am. Can you tell me your name?
Yes, Heather Rock.
Heather.
I like your friendly thug. I haven't met you, but I think a lot of people think you should be a thug you'd like to hug.
Oh my gosh! I love that.
My point is,
I'm in love with that.
with the pigs, have you done or can you do a lecture on how you get the folks with the brick house to have the pigs with the straw?
Okay, we're taking it to that level.
So they bring their straw and make the straw beds because we all want a comfy bed. They bring their sticks to build the furniture because we all need it. We can all live together in the same house.
In a commune?
Lovely. In a community, yes. Very good. Tell me your name one more time. Heather. Heather, thank you so much for that point. Yes. Here's a story that needs to be told. And I try not to get political because I'm not a politician. I'm too... there's more thug than hug. I guess the politician is more hug than thug. The politician is more hug than thug. I'm more hug than thug. Yeah, you guys get it. Here's a story that needs to be told, right? The story that needs to be told, and please, I'm seriously going to put the disclaimer, I am not trying to be political, seriously. The story that needs to be told is we need to abolish the meaning of socialism, right? As soon as you bring up socialism, it's a pretty failed system, right? It's like historically as practice, it's undeniably failed, right? So when people hear socialist, you think reappropriation of wealth, sharing, lazy people getting from people who actually work, Protestant work ethic, blah, blah, blah. The story that I like to tell is this. It's very simple. We are a global community. This world is increasingly getting smaller and smaller and smaller. In the last presentation, I think it was, tell me your name?
Leticia.
Leticia? Leticia made a good point. Leticia was you that said 2 languages isn't even enough. It's like Leticia said, that's 2 languages isn't even enough. You need 4 languages. I know a guy who speaks 40 languages, and I'm not joking, right? So it's like 2 languages isn't even enough anymore, right? Because we're becoming more and more global. We need more and more cultural diversity, more and more different ethnic backgrounds, understanding, more and more language proficiency and mastery. We need that. What you need to recognize is, from a purely political standpoint, is that the political government, and I hate having to do this in such a large scale because it is purely political, but the political government is run by, in part, tax revenue. That tax revenue comes up as capital from the middle class. If the middle class is continually shrinking, if the middle class is continually getting smaller, it doesn't change the demand for capital. We still need X million or $1 trillion in order to float the budget. So more people in the middle class are getting poorer and poorer, so they fall out of the middle class, right? Because they fall into poverty. So the middle class gets smaller, smaller. They fall off. Poverty gets larger and larger. You can't get as much tax revenue from the poor people. So the tax revenue still remains the same. The demand is still the same. Now the middle class, rapidly shrinking, has more of the burden. We have to pay more because the demand is still the same. Eventually what will happen is once this happens, it exponentially gets more and more difficult for people in the middle class to meet that tax revenue. Eventually it will collapse. Eventually, listen to the story, it will collapse. And do you think the government is going to say, oh, no more tax revenue. The middle class has collapsed, the poor people can't. Oh, I guess it's time for the government to fold up and close up shop. No, the government's going to turn the eye of Sauron onto the wealthy and tax them exorbitantly. Now I want 80%. Because you were so damn greedy and you thought it would never come to the point where the middle class actually collapsed and lost all of the revenue. We need money in order to exist, and we're going to take it from y'all. And do you think the government is going to allow them to say no? Oh, it's offshore? We got friends in Sweden. I'm going to call my homeboy, I'm going to call my friend in Sweden. They got some money over there for me. I need that money. They're going to get that money. You think you're not going to get touched? You think you're not going to get touched? You're going to get taxed. And you're going to get taxed worse than you've ever been taxed. So, being a good philosopher out of pure greed and self-interest and self-motivation, you should want to, if you're in that upper strata, contribute to taxation by taking and giving a little bit more, just to preserve the middle class so that they don't collapse. So on a purely diabolical evil, just give enough so that they don't collapse. Don't give any more that they flourish. Let's be honest. Let's keep it funky. Can we keep it funky? Let's keep it 100. Right? We don't want it to collapse. I just want to give enough so that they stay afloat. Because if they stay afloat, there'll be enough tax revenue generated from the middle class to keep us from having to be taxed. So just pay taxes out of sheer greed and self-interest. Right? Don't do it because of love. Don't do it because of socialism. Don't do it because you care. Just do it because you recognize that if you don't, Uncle Sam, I need my money. I need my money. And you know what Uncle Sam's going to do? Uncle Sam's going to get on the phone and give Dr. Campbell a phone call. Dr. Campbell, we need to justify this money. I'm going to be like, oh, I was waiting for you. I got the paper right here. Here's how you justify that. And they're going to be like, it's not our fault. Dr. Campbell said you could do it. And, I'm a thug, so I can take the heat. So, I think we are out of time. It's such an awkward way to end